Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or as we say in short, and say it with me if you'd like, create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Welcome to one and all. As always, we appreciate all that you bring with you this morning, all of your uniqueness, your unique beliefs and background, lifestyle, experiences, differences, everything that helps make you who you are is welcome, and we welcome those who join us regularly during this peculiar time in human history, as well as those who might be joining us for the first time today. Thanks so much for being with us via our live stream. I want to start by thanking Todd Milne, as always, for sharing his music with us during our services at this time. I'm going to be working on getting a few more live musicians in during coming weeks as well. But it's been a real gift, Todd, and he told me last week that if COVID-19 lasts long enough, he's really digging back into his CD collection, so we may get into his rock and roll days. So I'm actually looking forward to that. So. Also want to welcome our lay leader today. It's great to have lay leaders back with us, and Gordon Diddens, who is actually chairing our lay leader team, is here today to help lead our service. Gordon, great to see you, buddy.
Good to see you.
And we're at least 6 feet apart here.
We are.
Doing our best. Social distancing, modeling well. I know the governor has given us permission to have a lot more people in our sanctuary at this time, but I think we're going to continue to wait things out and see how things go. There's been spikes in the number of new cases ever since phase 2 happened. So we want to be as safe. We've got a lot of folks who would be considered more vulnerable to the ill effects of COVID-19 in our congregation. So we're just going to do our best to kind of be together virtually and wait and see what happens. But for now, things are going to kind of stay the same for the near future at least. Okay, I also wanted to start off with an appeal. I made it in my Minister's Minute midweek, but I also wanted to mention it here again during our service for on behalf of our friends at the Morning Star Baptist Church. You probably remember that name. It was in the paper in June, I believe, after it was plastered with racist flyers from a white supremacist group that said some pretty horrible things. And so the congregation, which is a largely African American congregation, was really assaulted by this type of terrorism, and that's what I would call it, I think, fairly. Well, it's hard to know what to do in those situations outside of calling and offering a supportive word. But I did find out recently from my friend, who is the minister of the Morning Star Baptist Church, Reverend Walter Kendricks, that they had a really surprise expense to the tune of about $25,000 for a brand new sewage system in their church that had to be replaced. And really don't have the resources, hadn't budgeted for something like that. So I'm asking those of us who can to contribute some to help offset some of the expense of that loss. It's a way that we can really reach out and help our neighbors at this particular time in history when we're all looking for something very tangible to show our love and support and our care. So if you want to contribute, please send a contribution. You can make it out to our church, to UUCS, and then when we get everything in, we will send one big gift on behalf of our congregation to Morning Star Baptist Church, and I appreciate your generosity in advance. So thank you so much. And the other thing I would want to say this morning is Happy Father's Day. I know it's a big day for a lot of folks who are fathers or have fathers, and reflect on all of the folks who have been fatherly in our lives, those who have guided us in ways that have helped shape who we have become over time. So happy Father's Day to everyone today. And I'm going to take a few moments now for us to greet one another virtually through our, maybe you'll want to say happy Father's Day to someone in your life, but in any case, greet someone that you're looking forward to saying hello to right now via a text or an email or a quick phone call. So we'll be back here in just a couple minutes. All right. I hope you'll take time during the afternoon and the rest of the week to continue to stay in touch with folks. But let's move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
Good morning. I want to also welcome everyone to spring. We've changed to summer, not to spring. We've left spring. We've changed the banner behind me here to our summer banner, and so we want to welcome summer as well. Our opening reflection today is called Empowering the Fathers of This World by Lorraine Batorf McNeil. Today is Father's Day, a day in which we honor and offer gratitude for our fathers in whatever form or fashion they came into our lives. Biological fathers, stepfathers, adoptive and foster fathers, grandfathers, spiritual fathers, and all of the uncles and brothers and friends who, whether they know it or not, have helped to fulfill the role of father in some of our lives. We are shaped by their presence and their absence, by how they choose to act and when they abstain, what they say and when they remain silent. Let us remember today and always the impact that these people have on us as individuals and as a community. And let us also remember that this relationship is not one-sided and that we as a community are called to support and empower the fathers of this world, no matter how they came into their roles and regardless of their relative successes or failures. Let us raise up their triumphs, and let us have the grace to forgive them their all too human failures. Let us love our fathers and each other. Come, let us worship together.
Thank you, Gordon. We're now going to kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds, and Gordon is going to kindle our candles here in our sanctuary, but if you have some virtual candles or physical candles at home you'd like to join in with, that'd be just fine too. And I did not receive any specific request for candles of care, but I did get an email this morning from Robin Millivallen Park. Now, Robin is the daughter of David Park, who was an interim minister here at UUCS back in 1995 through 1996. I know a lot of folks were here then and remember David. I happen to have known David from a time that he served as interim in Louisville, Kentucky, and was a colleague of mine, and I truly loved David. He was already in his 70s when I knew him, and I couldn't keep up with him. He was an extraordinary individual. He died at 91 on June 6th, and it's just really been a huge figure in Unitarian Universalism. If I remember right, he actually came from the Universalist tradition initially, but went on to become quite a renowned figure in Unitarian Universalism itself over the years. So he attributed his longevity to walking every day and eating oatmeal for breakfast with fresh fruit and coleslaw at lunch. But anyway, David will be missed and is much appreciated. So we light a candle celebrating his light and his life and the mutual connections we've had with him over the years, and I know a lot of you who remember David will appreciate knowing of his passing and remembering him fondly. So let's take a moment of silence on behalf of others that you might be thinking of, and if you're at home, you're welcome to name them aloud if you'd like. those named aloud, those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. Okay, it is time for our story for all ages. I'm going to drink some water. So this is a story that I did one time here before, a couple of years ago, I think. And it's a little bit different because I get to become the puppet instead of having a puppet come. And hopefully you'll enjoy it. It's called the Good Little Wolf and the Three Bad Pigs. And for those who are used to reading lips, I'm sorry this one is not going to work so well, but I'm going to speak loudly so that you're able to hear me as loud as I can. So pardon me while I get into costume. Okay, wasn't under the light of a full moon, but here we go. So now I get into character. Once upon a time, there was a good little wolf and three bad pigs. And the wolf's name was me. I'd just gotten my first job working for the WPA, the Woodland Protection Agency. It was my job to take care of the entire forest, which was pretty easy at first, because everyone liked the forest, and it pretty much took care of itself. Until one day, these three greedy pigs decide they're going to start a construction company building houses out of straw. They build houses so expensive that only other pigs could afford them. Before long, the other animals come to me and start complaining that the pigs is hogging up all the straw. There ain't enough straw left for the birds to build their nest in. There ain't enough straw left to grow the grain for the other animals to eat. There ain't even enough straw left for the bugs to hunt and hide in. So I decide I'm going to go talk personally to the pigs about the matter. I march over to Tri-Swine corporate headquarters, which has been built out of straw. I knocks on the straw door and says, greedy pigs, let me come in. To which the security guard responds, go away, get lost, you trespass in. Well, I start to walk away in a huff, when all of a sudden the wind kicks up and puff, blows the headquarters down. I see the three little pigs run off squealing, and I think to myself, that'll teach them you can't hog up all the resources for yourselves. But oh no. Next thing I know, them pigs decide they're going to start building houses out of wood. They build houses so expensive that only the top 10% of pigs could afford them. Before long, the animals come to me and start complaining that the pigs is hogging up all the trees. There ain't enough trees left for the birds to build their nest in if they had the straw. There ain't enough trees left to drop acorns for the squirrels to bury and plant new trees. There ain't even enough trees to shade the bugs on a hot day. So I decide I'm going to go talk personally to the pigs about the matter. I march back over to Tri-Swine corporate headquarters, which has been rebuilt out of wood. I knocks on the wood door and says, greedy pigs, let me come in. To which the security guard responds, I said get lost, skedaddle, and don't come back again. Well, I start to walk away in a huff when all of a sudden the wind kicks up and puff, blows the headquarters down. I see the three little pigs run off squealing, and I think to myself, that'll teach them this time for sure. You can't hog up all the resources for yourselves. But oh no. Next thing I know, them pigs decide they're going to start building houses out of bricks. They build houses so expensive that only the top 1% of 1% of pigs could afford them. Before long, the other animals come to me and start complaining that the pigs have turned the entire forest into a wasteland. They've dug huge quarries in the ground to have enough dirt to make their bricks. They've torn the tops off of mountains to have enough dirt to make their bricks. And without the straw of the trees to prevent erosion, whenever it rained, it turned the whole thing into a muddy mess that only the pigs could enjoy. So I decide I'm going to go talk personally to the pigs about the matter. I march back over to Tri-Swine corporate headquarters, which has been rebuilt out of bricks. I knocks on the brick door and says, greedy pigs, let me come in." To which the security guard responds, "Ogwe, owehe, or don't you understand pig Latin?" Well, I start to walk away in a huff, when all of a sudden the wind kicks up and puff. Nothing. The brick headquarters is still standing. But after a minute, even a bigger wind kicks up and puff. Still nothing. The brick headquarters doesn't budge. But after a minute, the biggest breath I can muster, I mean the biggest wind I ever heard of, kicks up. And puff! Still nothing. Nothing can move the brick headquarters. I start to walk away defeated. When all of a sudden, because of the devastation those 3 capitalist pigs have caused, the world has gotten so hot and so dry that the headquarters spontaneously catches on fire. I hear the 3 little pigs inside squealing. I knocked on the brick door, but it's locked. I got no choice but to climb up on the roof and slip down the chimney. Once inside, I break out a window and I drag the 3 little pigs and the security guard to safety. And once outside, they're so grateful to be alive, they finally decide to listen to what I got to say. And once they realized the devastation their greed had caused, they decided to take all the money they made building expensive houses and put it back into restoring the forest. It took some time, but working together with all the other animals, we were able to plant new straw and grow new trees. We were able to fill in the quarries and rebuild the mountaintops. And today, the forest is healthier than ever, and all the animals living therein are living happily ever after. Thank you. What's up next?
As we move into this time of meditation, I invite you to adjust your position at home so you are comfortable. You may close your eyes, relax with a slow, deep breath, and reflect on these words by Tim Haley. Amid all the noise in our lives, we take this moment to sit in silence, to give thanks for another day, to give thanks for all those in our lives who have brought us warmth and love, to give thanks for the gift of life, to give thanks for fathers. We know we are on our pilgrimage here, but a brief moment in time. Let us open ourselves here and now to the process of becoming more whole, of living more fully, of giving and forgiving more freely, of understanding more completely the meaning of our lives here on this earth.
Thank goodness for glasses. I tell you, I couldn't see anything without them. I'm going to read just a paragraph from Plato, Not Prozac by philosopher Lou Marinoff. It can be very difficult to understand our lives at times. We'd like to find a pattern, sometimes more than an accrual of habits or a drive to pass on our genes. We want that pattern to be pushing us towards better things. Such an optimistic outlook is the gentlest salve when something pains us. Bad things may happen, but at least experiencing them can help make us better people. Philosophers from Heraclitus to Lao Tzu agree that change is the only constant in life, and we all have our ups and downs. We'd like to believe that what we go through, particularly the bad stuff, is meant to teach us a lesson and to allow us to be more than we otherwise might have been. I can't tell you whether anyone or anything has given us these experiences with any intention at all about what, if anything, we learn from them. But as individuals with freedom of will, we can certainly choose to use anything that comes our way as fodder for our personal evolution. Thank you, Todd. Now, next Sunday, I'll be off, so we will have a recommended service for you to watch on our website, but you can always browse the archived services and choose a service maybe you missed or one you'd like to see again as well. And then on July 5th, will actually be my 9th year anniversary here. Believe it or not, like it or not, on July 5th. And Todd actually played during my first service here. And so he's going to do live music for us on July 5th. So looking forward to that. And I'm sure you'll want to be sure and put that one on your calendar. So Todd, looking forward to that, buddy. We're going to have a lot of arm twisting among our lay leaders to figure out who gets to come that day.
And I have the biggest vote. So.
You have the biggest vote.
Yeah.
All right, we're talking to the scheduler here right now, so we might be seeing our buddy Gordon in a couple of weeks again. So this is a sermon just entitled Philosophical Practice. And I'd venture to guess that most people know little about philosophy. At least little more than enough to think of a couple of old Greek names like Socrates and Plato, and that's probably it. While knowing nothing, or at least not much, about what either of them actually thought. When I went to college almost 40 years ago, I'd heard the word philosophy, but had no inkling what it meant. I only knew that I was required to take 2 semesters of the subject to fulfill the requirements of my liberal arts education. Today, even this much has changed as STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, has become the cornerstone of public and higher education. Philosophy, along with other disciplines, are now considered insignificant and impractical in an outdated industrial model of education that's meant to turn out employees. Along with subjects like literature, history, music, art, philosophy has been lumped into general humanities departments in many cases, through which one can get an unemployable degree in general humanities. For many, a college diploma has become little more than a piece of paper proving a graduate's right to work in an expensive system of modern indentured servitude. Universities have become the company store. Instead of guiding students toward becoming whole human beings by giving equal import to the things that make us human, the humanities, higher education has become a factory for manufacturing certified workers, if they are among the few lucky enough to find a full-time job that enables them to both make a living and pay back years' worth of student debt. Instead of lifelong learners, higher education more and more is fashioning lifelong debtors. No wonder Tan Le, one of the most influential young entrepreneurs on the planet today, predicts that 4-year colleges may soon become a thing of the past. This is so, she believes, because higher education can no longer prepare students adequately for the workforce that it's supposed to serve. It gives them general knowledge in a fast-changing world driven by exponentially evolving technologies. So what students learn in college, at least when it comes to STEM, may be obsolete by the time they graduate, as the economy starts to change at breakneck pace, Lee says. Professionals may need to upskill more quickly and more often throughout their careers. I see the concept of higher education moving away from the traditional teacher-pupil model of learning a subject from the master, and shifting toward the facilitation of lifelong learning. Instead of teaching students what to think, this means they need to learn agility, how to keep learning on their own in an exponentially changing world. As Lee says, our educational efforts will be better suited by focusing on complex problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity, so we can acquire and implement the skills needed for the fourth industrial revolution. I personally believe industries and businesses should develop their own educational consortiums and curricula, then foot the bill for the precision training of their employees, bypassing the requirement for a college-issued credential. In medicine and law, for example, the specifics are important enough that college graduates have to additionally go to med schools and law schools before they can ever begin to practice in these areas. So I say let these various fields and industries handle their own on-the-job training, which they already must do at the back end by training ill-prepared college graduates to do their job, and leave the overly expensive and increasingly useless college credentials out of it. That's harsh, I know, but a lot of kids out there that come out with a lot of debt too, and that's even harsher. The way our universities can, or this way I should say, universities can refocus on developing well-rounded human beings instead of manufacturing ill-prepared employees and consumers who must start off financially underwater. I say we should extend public education by 2 years of learning the humanities, including the areas of problem-solving, critical thinking, and creativity Tan Lee recognizes are essential to lifelong learning, but also in literature, history, music, art, and most crucially, in my opinion, philosophy. Remember, academia was begun by philosophers for teaching philosophy. The first academy being founded in Athens by Plato nearly 2,500 years ago. This gets higher education back to its roots, to guiding individuals toward becoming whole human beings by providing them the qualities of remaining lifelong learners, which makes them better people and better prepared for a changing workforce. What is a changing workforce in the process? The ancient academy wasn't about getting a degree, but about developing a life worth living. Aristotle studied in Plato's academy for 20 years before starting his own school. Philosophy is a way of living, not a way of making a living. In those days, it was to the philosophers that people turned for counsel and advice, not because they had all the answers, but because they knew what questions to ask. Philosophy isn't an ology. It's not like psychology, sociology, anthropology, neurology as examples, because it doesn't study what there is to know about anything. As Socrates famously said, I am wise because I neither know nor think that I know. Or as Bertrand Russell put it, in philosophy what is important is not so much the answers that are given, but rather the questions that are asked. But if philosophy isn't an ology, what is it? How does one learn it if not by studying it? To answer the first question, I say in brief, philosophy is a love story. That's what the word means after all, the love of wisdom, philosophia. It's more about devotion to a way of living than learning and acquiring knowledge. The kind of wisdom that philosophy is devoted to is the chronic examination of our own lives. The chronic examination of our own lives, which otherwise, according to Socrates, aren't worth living. It is a devotion to asking questions of ourselves and others, and to understanding and admitting the weaknesses of our own beliefs and ways. It is a devotion to awe and wonder. So to answer the second question, certainly we can learn about philosophy and should by studying its history, its prominent figures, and their ideas, but this is meaningless if philosophy is not put into practice. Philosophy is a way of life, not a field of knowledge. There's no such thing as philosophology. Just ask my spell checker. This is why I care more about what philosophy asks than what philosophers say. Wisdom isn't about quoting famous dead people and repeating ancient ideas. That's what Google is for. So what exactly does philosophy ask of us? To answer this, I start with the very first question that philosophy ever asked. And that question is, what is real? This question consumes a branch of philosophy now called metaphysics and was asked by Thales of Miletus nearly 2,600 years ago. It was because of this question that Thales is considered the first official philosopher. This is so because he responded to it by trying to explain existence in a naturalistic rather than supernatural terms for the very first time in recorded history. Subsequent philosophers followed his example, which is why the pre-Socratics, the pre-Socrates as they are called, were initially referred to as physikoi, or physicist. Each of them theorized about the arche, or of the cosmos, the basis, that is, of everything that exists, the fundamental principle that is in all things. Thales thought it to be water, since water can exist in solid, liquid, and gaseous states. Although he was wrong about that, it was a good guess, considering the most abundant element in the universe is universe. In fact, it is the arche in the sense that it is the very first element in the universe, hydrogen, the essential ingredient in water. His pupil, Anaximander, thought the arche was Empyrean, which means something like the infinite or the unbounded. And that doesn't sound quite as earthly as water, but keep in mind, Anaximander was also the first to draw a map of the world, or to attempt to draw a map of the world, entire world as he knew it. And through his study of nature was able to predict natural phenomena like equinoxes and solstices, and some say eclipses and even earthquakes. He also thought that humans came from fish, precursor to the theory of evolution, that the sun is made of pure fire, not a planet within itself, and that rain is caused by the condensation of water. And he worked to use math to calculate the sizes of the sun, the moon, and the earth. Very naturalistic, phenomenological in his approach to answering these mysteries. His student, in turn, Anaximenes, guessed air was the basic element within all things. Pythagoras, who also discovered the square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the square of the other two sides, the Pythagorean theorem, and irrational numbers, and musical intervals of the octave, fifth, and fourth, all with math, thought that the arche was a harmony between light and darkness, what he called the limited and the unlimited, respectively. Other pre-Socratics guessed things like fire, or the interaction of motion and change, or a combination of elements, or small atoms that cannot be uncuttable, which is what the word atomus means, indivisible. So the first step in philosophical practice is to get real, which means turning away from supernatural explanations and toward natural objective phenomenon in our search for understanding the world. It means basing our beliefs on tangible evidence. Although we can be certain of little, getting real means basing every leap of faith on our best educated guess, substantiated by empirical facts. Not every leap of faith is equal. Basing it on our best educated guess, substantiated by empirical facts. Philosophers before Socrates may be lumped into the unflattering category of pre-Socratics, but their historical mental leap forward should not be underestimated or underappreciated. Leapfrogging humanity beyond the superstitious thinking of our primitive ancestors into the beginnings of logic, math, and science was an unprecedented game changer. Still, most people then, like many of us today, didn't care for the tedium of these abstractions and didn't consider them very useful. They cared more about making their way in the world than about what the world is made of, understandably so. But then Socrates did appear on the scene, about 2 centuries after Thales, and turned philosophy from a strict emphasis on physics, math, and cosmology into a more inward discipline. The unexamined life is not worth living, Socrates said. So he examined life, or more accurately, he cross-examined it by asking ceaseless questions through what has become known as his dialectic method. The intention was to keep asking questions until arriving upon an answer that was unquestionable, which never arrives. This is the same method that Descartes used to conclude that the only thing he could be sure of was the existence of his own mind, cogito ergo sum, although even that is questionable. That's what an examined life is, continuously questioning what we believe and what others expect us to believe. No wonder Socrates called himself a gadfly, which got him in a lot of trouble, because he ended up questioning the wrong people and the wrong beliefs. When the authorities asked him how he thought they should punish him, he said, and I paraphrase slightly, "I am a gadfly, sent to you as a gift from the gods. The state is like an overgrown horse that's become too large and slow to move, so I have been sent to bite it in the ass and stir it to life. You should be careful what you do to me, for I am a gift from the gods, and you cannot easily replace me." And then they had him executed. So that's step number 2. Be a gadfly. Question everything, including the authorities and especially your own beliefs. After Socrates, other pragmatic philosophies emerged in pursuit of the good life. The Athenians, in particular, were having a hard time back then, having first been ravaged by war with Sparta and later overtaken by the Romans. They wanted eudaimonia, which means good spirit, and ataraxia, which means contentment. In short, they wanted to feel happy again. They wanted to be of good cheer. This resulted in the emergence of cynicism, happiness through abstinence and austerity, Epicureanism, also called hedonism, happiness through indulgence and pleasure, and Stoicism, happiness through following one's values regardless of whether doing so causes us pain or pleasure. So that's the third leg of philosophical practice. Strive for the good life. Socrates taught Plato, an idealist who founded idealism, who taught Aristotle, one of the most accomplished philosophers of all time, a tutor of Alexander the Great, and gifted humanity with formal logic, among much else. But logic is a natural development of the philosophical foundations first set by Thales. For it's all about making inferences based on evidence. Logic isn't so much about the conclusions we draw, but about the soundness of the reasons for those conclusions. Too few of us ever study logic, yet most of us think that our beliefs are perfectly reasonable. This is so because we explain our emotional responses with narrative. We justify them, that is, with verbal explanations, making up reasons, what we think are reasons for what we are feeling. But this is rationalizing, not reasoning. Reasoning, which I use synonymously with logic, requires us to step back from our emotions and what we want to be true and objectively consider tangible evidence with sound thinking. Erich Fromm said, rationalizations are essentially lacking this quality of discovering and uncovering. They only confirm the emotional prejudice existing in oneself. So one way to help determine if we are being objective and reasonable, or just rationalizing our emotions and delusions, is if our thinking leads us to discover something new or different, or even in opposition to what we thought before. You don't have to learn formal logic to do that much. Nor do you have to learn logic to imitate Socrates by chronically asking why. That's essentially what logic does. It questions the reasons for what we believe and are asked to believe. So just get back to being like a child before we heard stop asking so many damned questions once too often and start doing what comes natural again. Be reasonable by asking why. Finally, we come to ethics, from the Greek word meaning character. Ethics is different from morals, which refer to specific norms and rules. Ethics refers to character, which means being reliable in our behavior, there being something consistent about what we do. Not that any of us is ever perfect, but we should strive to observe our values in every circumstance, regardless of the impact upon our lives. It means not simply going ahead with the crowd or doing what is most expedient at the moment. It's hard. It takes practice, including lots of trial and error. It takes the development of character. Ethics is generally divided into two types: ends-based and means-based. And we're all taught the ends never justifies the means, but not weighing the consequences of our ethical actions is to act without compassion and can lead to a lot of terrible injustices. If the ends don't justify the means, what does? Sometimes we have to break the rules to do what is right. That's the basic ethical dilemma in every moral decision we make. Should I do the right thing, follow the rules, or the best thing, concern myself with the actual outcome? Should I do the right thing or the best thing? Do I follow the rules without fail, or should I look at the relative consequences of my decisions? We each have to figure this out for ourselves because it's a perennial problem. It's a perennial dilemma. But having character, something consistent, though not unyielding, at our core is an important part of being ethical, of becoming ethical. This is what philosophy asks of us: to get real, question everything, find happiness, be reasonable, and act right. These are pretty good rules for living, if you think about it. Get real, question everything, find happiness, be reasonable, and act right. But alas, few of us today even know what philosophy means, let alone ever learn how to start putting it into practice. This is so, getting back to the problem with which we began of higher education, because modern philosophy, which again founded higher education, has chosen to isolate itself within the academy. within academia, the very institution that has now regulated it to homogenize humanities departments where it's stored with other nostalgias thought to serve little practical purpose. As philosopher Lou Marinoff writes in his book, Philosophical Practice, by the late 20th century, philosophy had all but ceased to be a mode of active engagement with oneself and the world. By the 20th century. As it was in antiquity and throughout the ages, and had become too frequently a drab and deficient mind game with no apparent purpose other than to grapple with concepts about concepts about concepts ad nauseum, if not ad infinitum. Instead of attracting students, it repelled them. University administrators began to downsize philosophy departments and merge them with two other endangered academic species, classics and religious studies. Maybe its demise in academia can be seen as a good thing if philosophy returns to the streets and ordinary people begin to rediscover its value and start putting it into practice. Not everyone is a philosopher, but most can put philosophy into practice by simply giving a little consideration to the questions it asks of life. Just a little consideration. It doesn't take much. What do I believe is the nature of reality? How do I determine what I believe to be true? How do I know the differences between right and wrong? What is my life's purpose? What makes me happy? These questions seem so basic and essential, yet how many of us have pondered them with intention, let alone written them down in our own meditations about them, like the old philosophers used to do? Write our meditations on these perennial questions. That's a good starting point for your philosophical practice. Meditate on these questions and follow each of your responses with an additional question. Why? Why do you believe it to be the nature of reality? Why do you determine truth this way? Why do you believe this is the difference between right and wrong, and so on? Have reasons, sound reasons, for how you answer these most important life-examining questions. And as you go about your life, remember to get real, question everything, find happiness, be reasonable, and act right. Thank you.
In closing today, I want to share with you a Father's Day prayer written by Carol Allman Morton. On Father's Day, we honor those people who have been teachers, confidants, and friends. We acknowledge that it is not biology that makes a parent, but love and attention. For those of us that have lost a father or a child, we hold their memories in our hearts. For all of us who are fathers, we ask for continued help in discerning how best to care for our children, whether they are 5 or 50 years old. May the strands of relationship between ourselves and all of creation grow ever stronger. And may all of us, no matter what our place in the cycle of life, experience nurture and love. And may we pass on that love to those we encounter on our own paths. So may it be. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.
Thank you.